Hey, magic makers. I hope you are having a fabulous day, morning, afternoon, wherever we happen to be in your day as you tune in. And so today I want to talk about the small things you can do right now so that your future self will build a statue in your honor. So your future self will look back and be like, girl, thanks so much for doing that. I just watched a movie over the weekend. It was called My Old Ass. And in the movie, um, the character's future self came back to give her some advice and some warnings. And so this is, imagine if your future self came back to you and said, hey, girl, this is some of the stuff you need to start doing because I'm dealing with the downstream effects. So this is your old ass talking to yourself right now. And one of the big takeaways as I've been on this journey of like weight loss and so forth is that I used to think go big or go home, right? We were sold that for years, sold go big or go home. And what I'm now finding is that it's not about making these massive, drastic, overwhelming changes that leave you like crying over your kale salad. Because I have tried to set myself up doing all the things, everything right, everything perfectly. And I have literally fallen down in a heap. And what I have found over decades of trying to do it the hard way, I have found these sneaky little tweaks that my future self has been, giving me winks like, dang, girl, you finally learned your lesson. So let's dive into these five small changes that you can start doing today. The first one is, girl, please add some more food to your plate. It is time we stopped eating like a toddler, right? I have recently been doing a bunch of starting a new program and doing a bunch of intake calls with potential clients. And one of the women was like, oh, you know, I said, what has kept you from being successful? She's like, well, I have tried these 1,200 calorie diets and they just don't last. I just don't feel satisfied. And I'm like, yeah, because 1,200 calories is like doubling as your 5-year-old's lunchbox, right? Let's drop the rice cakes. Let's drop the string cheese, the cold brews, right? Those don't scream thriving energy. They scream fumes. 1,200 calories. I don't know how that started. I want to find that person. But for 1,200 calories, it doesn't take into effect that you are still exercising like a crazy person. It doesn't take into effect that you barely sleep. Your hormones are a hot, steaming mess. You are stressed at work, stressed at home. It doesn't take into account. Instead of thinking about, I must have a certain number of calories, let's talk about how do I feel my body? How do I make my body be like, girl, thank you for this. Thank you for giving me something to eat. So maybe, when I ask people, I'm like, hey, have you ever thought about like expanding your food? And I usually get like the bodybuilder's delight, right? So it's, oh, I need to eat chicken, broccoli, and brown rice. No, that's not what I'm saying to you. What I'm saying is, sure, have some type of protein on your plate. It could be chicken. If you like chicken, rock on with your bad self. Some type of vegetable and even like a smoothie. I don't like that people have more than one smoothie a day. And hey, loving what you eat doesn't mean eating cardboard. One of the big things I work with people on is let's find foods that you actually love versus somebody told you don't even know who, when, how long ago someone told you eat in a certain manner, and that's how you've been eating it. Let's start to think about, what if foods that you think are actually comforting you are the foods that are actually holding you back, right? So instead, how we find foods that actually give you energy, boost your mood, and stop you having cravings. All right. Second, we're going to start lifting like we mean it. Here's the deal, like the 5-pound dumbbells, they're cute, but they're not going to build that badass muscle machine that you need. This is what I know. If you're someone who is like, how many calories did I burn today on my Apple Watch? You're going to burn more calories if I have more muscle on my body. If I have more muscle on my body, I go to Florida to visit my parents, and most of the people that you see there are under muscled. Most of you think it's fat, but what you're seeing is when muscle doesn't have definition, when muscle doesn't have tone, right? So for those of you guys thinking, I want to be toned, think about someone who's in their like 80s and 90s and they have not been strength training. What you're seeing is undeveloped muscle. So now is the time for us to start building our muscle. And that means, I teach group fitness, and once a month I walk around the room and I say, for some reason I have this strange memory that I know when you haven't picked up something heavy. I walk around the room, and if I've seen that you have not picked up something heavier in 1 month, I will nicely drop a heavier pair of weights next to your body. The goal here is that, like, heavy is relative. What heavy really means is that if I'm doing, say, 10 reps, the last 2 to 3 reps of said exercise should feel challenging but doable, right? So that I still have good form, but the last few reps feel like, ooh, yeah, this was the weight. If I can blow through 10 reps, that means it's time for me to pick up something heavier. Now, if I'm struggling with every single rep, that means I'm lifting something a little bit too heavy. So it's like those last 2 to 3 reps is what we're looking to be a little bit challenging. And so, for many people, like, oh, but I'm gonna get all buff and beefed when I do strength training. But here's the thing. The What I know, strength training builds your confidence, because all of a sudden you were intimidated by the weight room. One of my first jobs, when I first started training, I went to a university, and I literally was there for 6 months. And my job was I sat in the weight room for like 2 hours a day, and a few days a week, and I did a weight training clinic. And I basically taught the women how to feel comfortable in the weight room, how to come into the weight room, know what to do, know how to, move the weights around, know how to pick up the dumbbells, how to change the seats. I mean, I guess for me, I never realized how for granted I took the comfort that I have in the weight room, that I just walk in and just do stuff. And these women, my goal was to take down the veil between, like, the group fitness room and the actual weight room. And that's why I say one of the proudest things I've done in my fitness career was that, just to teach women that, it's okay to walk into the big weight room and not feel intimidated by all the dudes. And yeah, some gyms could have a little bro energy. I feel that. But it's also good for you to know that you can go in there, because strength is your future. It's your insurance policy. It helps dispose blood sugar. It helps balance out your insulin level. It helps with stability, right? One of the biggest things as you get older is falling, so we want to make ourselves fall proof so that we can go the distance. And I'm not go in there and like grab the 100-pound dumbbells. Maybe eventually you grab the 100-pound dumbbells, but for right now, I want you to think about, and think, like, what if strength training wasn't about getting ripped? It was just basically about showing up for yourself, showing up for your future self, so that you are able to lift a gallon of water out of the refrigerator. You are able to take your groceries into the house without feeling winded, go upstairs, right? That's what strength training is. It's how do I translate what I'm doing in the gym to acts of daily living? Because trust me, I've seen when people get old. And my goal for me is that I don't want to use a walker and I don't want to use a cane. And in order to do all that stuff, you bet your sweet bottom, I'm strength training, I'm balance training, I'm doing a lot of mobility work to make sure that future Kim, 80-year-old Kim, is able to do that, because frailty is a thing and it sucks. And you don't want to look back and be like, oh, if I only listened to that podcast back in the day and just lifted up something heavier than 5 pounds. Oh, she was right. All right. I'm off that soapbox. Moving on. Sleep. This is my jam, right? Let's call it what it is, right? Late night scrolling, or wait, I'm going to watch one more episode, or just passing out on your couch because, maybe you're still in that stage where you're putting kids to bed, and, you earned the last few hours of your night, after homework and bedtime and all that other stuff. But what's happening is that stuff is actually stealing your energy. It's stealing your mood, and it's zapping your productivity, right? What if you swapped that evening ritual to sleep. And I'm a huge believer in a bedtime routine. It just, we all, just like your kids need a way to like transition from running around the house to bed, you need a transition. And I'm not saying it has to be a 20-step routine, right? It could be something really simple. You wash your face and brush your teeth. You maybe read an actual book for a little bit. Maybe you meditate, do some breath work, but it's, maybe listen to some relaxing music, maybe do a little mobility work, but you're physically telling your body it's now time to power down your engines and make the transition to sleep. And one of the things that, I call it my wind down time, and I protect that like a tiger, and some nights I feel like I need a little bit more time to wind down the engine. And sometimes I feel like, it's going to be 5 minutes and I'm out. But it's my body's way of saying, me showing my body's way that like we're going from high energy to low energy. And your hormones will love you because sleep is just does a body good at our age. Your brain's going to function better. You're going to be less hungry, less cravings. I had a new client start with me, and probably the first 3 months, I was like, here's what we're going to work on: water and sleep, right? Focus on that. And let's talk about it. And somebody was like, but that's not enough. Well, if you have a really busy life, that's enough. And she had a really busy life. And so 3 months later, I was like, how's it going? I did check with her in between, but after 3 months, I'm like, how's it going? Has this become a little bit easier for you? And she said, I was kind of pissed at you when you told me to water and sleep. And I said, I feel that. And she goes, but this is what I know. I've made it a priority to get 7 hours of sleep. So it's forced me to like look at the night and say, I need to be in bed by 10 o'clock. She said, it also forced me to, I also now feel more connected with my family because I have more patience. I'm not chronically exhausted. I have more patience with my students because I'm not exhausted all the time. And then she's like, I'm also like, she goes, I feel like, I feel like doing more things because I'm not chronically exhausted. But then she also mentioned, she's like, I also feel like with more water in my system, I'm not as snacky as much because I'm hydrated. So it's these little small things that, if I told you that, you would probably roll your eyes and you're like, where's my meal plan? Girl, do these two things first, right? I like to look at this as like a chess game. If you can do these two things well, let's take it to the next level, right? It's like a game. You don't just show up and you're the master, you're playing basketball like LeBron. I mean, if you do, awesome. But all of us show up and we're like, we're double dribbling, we're like, can't coordinate our hands with our feet. Like, you gotta like be a beginner. Approach it as if you were a beginner. And I saw this thing today, and I gotta look it up because I remember part of the phrase, but I'm not quite all of it. So let me look it up. It says, okay, this is from one of my former mentors. She said, something done with excellence is better than done with perfection. And what that means is that I could give you all the things, absolutely. And I used to do that. I used to overload you and be like, here's your list of 4 million things. Do it. And what I found out is that you would get overwhelmed. You would maybe do 2 million of them, get pissed off that you couldn't do all 4 million. And then you would just be like on your back like a turtle. So what I have found is that if I give you something, these little wins, right? I want you to feel like a winner, because when you feel like a winner, you want to go again. And so now that I've given her the water and the sleep, she feels great. She's like, yeah, awesome. Now, what do you feel ready to tackle next? What do you feel ready to tackle next? Because I'm not going to judge if you're like, girl, all I can take right now is water. Wonderful. Let's do the water. Because I get into those moments too. Like, I tracked my food last year for almost 9 months. And I was just like, oh, it's killing me to track my food. And so at the time, my coach was like, okay, let's stop tracking your food and let's see how it goes. And it was like, work with where you are versus trying to always cram yourself into this square hole, right? If you're a round peg, be a round peg. And like, no, honestly, the best thing, this is a bonus tip, just be honor the season that you're in. You know, if you are in a season that you have all the time in the world, boom, let's do this. But if you're in a season where you're like, girl, I don't really have that kind of time, be in that season and honor what you can do. What can you take on without feeling guilty or bad? All right. The next one, hydration. You know, I kind of talked about it, but I see it all the time. You know, cold brew and wine, that ain't hydration. Okay. It's not. Your body is begging for water. Every sip is a love letter to your skin, to your joints, to your digestion. You know, not a fan of water. I've been addicted to the True Lemon. It's a powder. I add True Lemon to my water. Absolutely love it. Cucumber, even a splash of juice, add that to your water. You know, make it fun, but make it happen. I've shared this with you before. So my water bottle, I fill it up and I leave it in my bathroom at night. And I leave it in my bathroom at night so that when I'm getting dressed in the morning, I'm drinking that while I'm getting dressed. And so that way, by the time I have, maybe it's like I've gotten through um one bottle of water. My goal is to drink somewhere between 3 and 4 bottles of my water. If I start that in the morning, usually by the time I have my first cup of coffee, I've already got through half of my water bottle. And then by the time I go for my second cup of coffee, I have to finish that water bottle in order to get coffee. So it's really like my gamification of my system to me. So it's like little pieces throughout the day that I try to every habit needs like a cue, right? To trigger the behavior. So my cue is when I wake up in the morning, it's literally on my sink. I can't miss it. My bathroom's green, that's blue. Can't miss it. Stands out like a sore thumb. And I drink that. My second trigger is that by the time I have lunch, I want to be on my way to having 2 of those bottles. And then my third trigger is that I teach 2 nights a week. And so my third trigger is that like by the time I finish with 2 of my classes, I want to be done with at least 1 more bottle. So it's like I've created these little mini like checkpoints throughout the day. They do sell the water bottles that say like by 2 o'clock have this, by 3 o'clock have this. Your call, your thing. I just know that if I drink uh 3 to 4 of those, I feel absolutely really good. And so, you know, water, yeah, boring AF, but it is the key to feeling alive, vibrant, and energized every single day. And then the fifth one I want to leave you with here is, and I kind of alluded to it earlier, it's time to ditch the all or nothing, right? Because if doing all the things worked, right? If they did work, would we be having this conversation? Right. And, you know, I need to start a recovering perfectionist chapter here in Boston, right? It's a trap, right? Progress is where the magic lives. And I see it all the time, you know, we're waiting for the perfect time. We're waiting for the perfect meal plan, the perfect diet, like it's just a form of procrastination. One, there's never a perfect time. And you know what? You know what's a perfect time? To do things when you're busy, because life is always going to have those busy moments and then they're going to have those quiet moments. And we all know that. The last time life got super quiet was during Rona. And let's just say this, ain't nobody going back to those Rona days. So I want you to really ask yourself, right? Instead of me having a list of 500 things to do, let's make the list. Absolutely. Make that damn list. But let's ask ourselves on this list, what already feels easy? And like we're highlighting green, right? What already feels easy? So if I'm already working out 3 days a week and that feels easy, great, highlight that. If I'm already eating my protein, good fats, all that, like let's just highlight all the things I'm doing good. Perfect. Now, on that list of the 500 things I think I need to do, let's highlight yellow for like, yeah, I probably could do better. Highlight that, right? Highlight what we can do better. And then red, highlight, girl, I need to start doing this shit. And then as you're looking at that list, I don't want you to pick more than 3, no more than 3, 1 to 3. Look at that list and say, okay, what here can I add in without feeling like it's going to topple me over, right? So for me, if I were to add in, I want to add in getting more fruits and vegetables. I've been hovering around like 3 cups of vegetables every single day. I want to be landing somewhere between 4 and 5 cups of vegetables. So for me, that would be what I would be adding in. And so like, and I could just stay right there. For me, my second thing is I want to be um, adding in at least 2 days where I'm just doing zone 2 cardio, not walking. This is just truly zone 2 cardio. So those are the 2 things that if I was adding right now, well, I am adding them. 2 things, if I shared with you my entire list of things that I would like to get done, those are the 2 things that I'm focusing on right now. And I'm not going to focus on anything else on that damn list until I get those 2 feel as seamless as I told you about my water, right? My water, got that unlocked. But I want you to feel the same way. And then once that feels good, we move on to the next part of the list. We move on to the next part of the list, right? Because perfection isn't the goal, but it's our permission, right? Our permission to be imperfect, right? Our permission to grow, to fail, to get back up, right? That's the real power move, my friends. That is the real power move. Like, okay, I failed. And just having that, like, I call it my CSI moment, right? So this is what I failed at. I did a goal setting session with the girls in my Fit Girl Magic Society. And we did a goal setting session. I said, write down everything you failed at, right? Write down everything you were mad or jealous at. Write it down because that shows us our weaknesses. And so then the next step was to be like, okay, if I failed at it, what did I learn? Right? What did I learn? Was it in my control? Was it out of my control? Was I trying to do too much? Like, what was the lesson that I learned from it? Right. And the lesson couldn't be like, I suck. Right. I wanted it to be like, how like you have a review with your boss and your review, I mean, if you're at a qualified company here, your boss is gonna be like, girl, you suck. Your boss would be like, Kim, it would be ideal if you were to do blah, 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 right? Your boss would be like, Kim, you sucked at blah, 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 blah. It would be like, Kim, it would be ideal if you were to incorporate more whatever it is that you do for a living, right? So that's what I want you to think about. Those are the kind of things that when you work with me, I don't ever invite you to beat the crap out of yourself. I'm more like, there's wisdom, wisdom, and you just can't be afraid to show yourself the wisdom you know. All right. So I want you to say to your future self, right? This overhaul doesn't have to happen overnight. I want you to say to your future self that I need to lower my expectations and you need to sit the bleep down and let me work through this because I'm gonna challenge you to do this for like 90 days and then look back because so many of us, I get it, right? We've bought into the 30 days to a tighter tush, 12 weeks to this, 16 weeks to that. I want you to really, really commit, right? Like really like heads down, not looking around and being like, it's not happening fast enough. I want you to be able to say, this overhaul isn't going to happen overnight. I want you to look at yourself for 30 days and see how you did and give yourself a grade. It's not pass fail. I want you to say satisfactory. I did awesome. What needs improvement, right? Satisfactory or needs improvement. We're not trying to be like, Susie, perfect Patty and get like the A++ and ask me for extra credit. Here's where we say to ourselves, like, I just need to take one step after the other, one step, not trying to go from like crawling to walking to sprinting all in one day, right? The kids don't do that. They, walk around like a drunk sailor, fall a bunch of times, but they get themselves back up. Right now, we are in the crawl to drunken sailor stage with some of these things that we are trying to establish. So that at some point, one day you're up and you're like, holy crap, I'm walking. Look at what I did. So, what I would love to know is which one of these five moves are you going to start today? What are you going to dig into? Are you ditching the all or nothing personality, starting to hydrate, focusing on your sleep, lifting a little bit heavier, adding some more calories to your plate? You know, do me a favor, like screenshot this, tag me on the socials, DM me. I want to know how you're doing because we're not doing this just for today. We're doing this for your future self. So your old ass can look back at you and be like, girl, thank you. Thumbs up. All right. So, ladies, this is all about showing up for yourself, leveling up, and as always, you're not perfect. You are just a work in progress. So thanks. Don't forget to, if you're not subscribed to this, feel free to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with one of your favorite 40 something ladies. All right. You got this. I will talk to you next week.